All right, it's 5:35. We got a lot of people here, so let's get the show on the road. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing this thing and just introduce myself real quick. I'm Pete Rice. I'm a transportation planner with the Department of Transportation. I was the project manager in Movimiento, our transportation plan for East San Jose. And I've been working on some implementation of the projects in that plan. We have a lot of DOT staff here as well. I'm not going to ask everyone to introduce themselves. But with that, I'd like to just, I have about, I would say 23-minute presentation around that. And then there's going to be time for questions throughout, and then we can have a longer discussion at the end.
Hey, Pete, do you want people to enter questions as they come to them in the chat or interrupt?
Yeah, it's please enter it in the chat. Colin and Natasha are going to be monitoring the chat. And we will have, like I was saying, at the end of each section, the sections aren't that long. So at that point, I'll ask, for questions, and Colin or Natasha can read out what is in the chat. Thanks, Colin. All right, there we go. Okay, so everyone's here for the Movimiento Quick Strike project, right? It's not a different meeting you were looking for. What we're going to begin with is what we know, right? This is our planning basis for when we started the design process, and some of the data we have that informed our designs. From there, we'll look at what we've heard, where I'll go over the outreach we've done to date and the feedback we've gotten during the past 2 years of design work. And then we'll look at what we're doing, and that is the treatments included in our designs, and we'll talk about how these treatments will address the issues we've identified and also discuss some trade-offs. We're gonna, like I was saying, we're gonna pause at the end of each section for questions and comments, and feel free to add them in the chat as we're going along. All right, so first, what we know. So as I was saying, Movimiento is our transportation plan for East San Jose that we wrapped up in early 2020. And so with this plan, we worked with the community to develop a network of projects to address community identified issues and achieve community and city goals. And the 7 quick strike corridors that we're going to be talking about today, they were among the projects identified in the Movimiento planning process. So these are some of the key takeaways from Movimiento. We asked community members about challenges to walking, biking, and taking transit in East San Jose, and high vehicle speeds were the #1 cited challenge. We also asked about potential treatments to address issues, and traffic calming and enhanced pedestrian crossings were 2 of the treatment options most supported by community members. We asked community members about their priorities for improving transportation in the planning area, and safety and health were among the top community priorities. And then finally, something we heard quite a bit from the community is that implementation of projects was a priority, right? In other words, they wanted less talk and more action. We were politely asked to start delivering some of the projects rather than just talking about them. So that brings us to how we got here tonight. And that is, so this project was made possible by a grant from the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, MTC. It's a program they call Quick Strike. And we were awarded $1.4 million for design and construction of the 7 project corridors. The catch is that these projects have to be ready to go relatively quickly. You can see the timeline here. This is actually a little bit longer than the initial timeline because we received an extension. But initially, we thought we had about a year to design these projects. So these are the project goals that we have stated from the beginning. I think they align well with what we've heard during Movimiento. So we want to make these streets safer for all, right? But especially our most vulnerable roadway users, people who walk and bike. We want people to slow down, and we want to create a network so people can access a lot of the great places that we have on the east side. For those of you that are new to the project, I'm seeing some unfamiliar names here, which is great. These corridors in green are the project corridors, and except for 21st Street, they're all bike boulevards or shared streets, meaning bikes and cars share the same travel lane. And to make that safe, we employ traffic calming, or we will employ traffic calming. Now, for streets like the 7 project corridors, we want to target speeds of 20 miles per hour and volumes of 1,500 cars per day. So ADT here, that stands for average daily traffic. And as you can see from this chart, nearly every segment, say for 21st and Sharp, so here's 21st and here's Sharp, they all exceed the 1,500 target ADT, and often we're double that. And you can see in this, speeding is also an issue. This is the 85th percentile speed. For every corridor, it's at least 25, and most of the time it's closer to 30, if not over 30. And as you can see here, speed is an incredibly important issue. The chances that you'll survive a collision increase dramatically as speeds drop. So at 20 miles per hour, you have a 90% chance of surviving. At 40 miles per hour, it drops to a 20% chance. And finally, this is a map of our Vision Zero corridors. So if you're not familiar, Vision Zero is a citywide program to eliminate traffic-related deaths and serious injuries. These Vision Zero safety corridors that you see on the map here, they're the most dangerous streets in San Jose. And you can see they're concentrated on the east side. There's Saratoga Avenue on the west side, but a lot of them are over here in East San Jose and Southeast San Jose. We're doing our best to make the streets safer. We have a Vision Zero team, and they're working really hard on that. But we're also what we're also doing is providing alternatives. Okay, so you can see here's King Road and here's Jackson. They're both north-south corridors in East San Jose. And then when you go to our project map, you'll see we have 33rd Street, we have Sunset, we have Jose Figueres. They all run parallel to those streets, right? And then we have Santa Clara and Alum Rock here. And then with our projects, we have projects on William and Cameron, and we've done a project on San Antonio in the past. Okay, so that is the end of what we know. Do we have any questions or comments at this point?
There are none in the chat.
All right. Must be crystal clear, everything I'm saying. That's great. Well, let's go on then to what we've heard. Okay. So what we know was, the takeaways from the Movimiento planning process, the grant requirements, and some safety data. What we've heard is, from the community outreach that we've done during this design process over the last 1.5 years. So we've really done an unprecedented amount of outreach during this design process. Often a lot of the outreach happens during the planning, but not so much during the design. And we've just kept on with the outreach that we started with the Movimiento plan. We kept doing it during the design process. You can see here we had a number of public meetings, a website, online recordings. I'm sure some of you are here because you received mailers. And then today we have an online open house, and we're going to have another one tomorrow night. This is some of the takeaways from that. One thing is, if you don't get a chance to say what you want to say tonight, or you're feeling shy or whatever, and you don't want to participate tonight, the website, you can there's a comment box on the website, and that will allow you to enter in your thoughts there. They'll be directed to my inbox, or you can just email me, and I can put my email in the chat at some point tonight. Or it's also on the mailers that you guys received. So this is not your only chance to speak up if you don't feel like doing it tonight, or you have to leave early or something like that. So back to what we've heard. Gonna mute you there, Mark. Okay. These are some of the key takeaways, like I was saying, that we heard during outreach. Some of it is the same as we heard during a Movimiento, right? There's a desire for safe streets and for people to slow down. When we discuss specific treatments, people really like the idea of chicanes and high visibility crosswalks and speed humps. And we also had some initial confusion about what exactly a bike boulevard is. And people heard the word boulevard and they said, why are you putting a boulevard on these small residential streets? So we had to clear up that misconception. And then recently we've heard some concern about parking removal. All right, so that's what we heard. And now let's turn to what we're doing. Do we have any comments or questions?
There was a
Peter's-
question in the chat about the from Darlene regarding when the speed surveys were done, and I believe they were done right at the beginning of 2022, right after the winter time. We don't like to take them in the rain, but Pete, I don't know if you had a more detailed answer.
Yeah, I could access that, but off the top of my head, I can't remember. Somewhere around then. I think we did 2 of them actually. Is that okay? I see Natasha or the other.
Can I talk?
Go for it.
Okay. So then my follow-up question is, and Pete, you know that I live on 33rd Street.
Yep,
So was the survey conducted in particular between McKee and Alum Rock? Because as I shared with you, we have a stop sign, and literally through COVID and even today, I work in my den. Very front, I can hear cars rev up their engine just to speed down the road. So was the average taken just between Alum Rock and McKee?
Yeah.
Or
So
was it the entire 33rd Street, which I would imagine it would have a different outcome?
yeah. So you can see here, these are the locations. You lay down tubes on the street, and that's how they measure the speed. So for your segment, I believe that would be this one right south of St. John.
So what does that mean?
And what does that mean, that location?
South of St. John. So is that the entire 33rd Street that is outlined on the card and that you presented on your slide?
So it's not an average of, let's see, how can I explain this? It takes cars going over the tubes. That's where it measures them. You do it at the mid block, so you get the speed of each car, and then you use that to create a range.
So was the tube placed on one location, or it was placed in several? So then
it was placed, so 33rd Street south of St. John and 33rd Street north of San Fernando, so farther south.
Okay, I don't know St. John or San Fernando, so I'm in a loss. That's where I'm not quite clear. Was one placed in between McKee and Alum Rock?
Yeah, St. John is right to the north of Alum Rock, so this would be between Alum Rock and St. John, I believe.
Okay, if you could just, it would be nice just to get that confirmation, since we've had some conversations, and this survey you were going to have redone, I thought, and so it would be nice to have that data.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. All right, okay. What we are doing. So this let me figure out where we are here. All right. So this is where we're going to go over the treatments and the designs and talk a little bit about their benefits and how they address some of the issues that we've just gone over. Okay, so I touched on this briefly before, but just real quick because there's been some confusion in the past. A bike boulevard is typically a street that does not have room for bike lanes and travel lanes, so people on bikes and drivers must share the lane. And so to make that safe and comfortable, we employ traffic calming. Traffic calming is infrastructure and striping that increases driver awareness and encourages slower speeds. And this is just a bit about the materials we're using. So this project was originally envisioned with quick build materials in mind. Quick build means cost-effective paint and plastic treatments that one can employ in the near term to see project benefits quickly. We've used the quick build approach a lot within Movimiento because, like I was saying earlier, we're trying to deliver the projects as soon as possible. We heard you when you said you wanted more action and fewer words. This doesn't mean we're not going to pursue the long-term beautiful treatments like what Nagley Park has or other areas of the city. We will, but for this project, we'll be using this FG300 curb system pictured here on the right. So the FG300 posts and curbs are highlighted on the plans with a 1 like this. This is a screenshot from the plans. Okay, so the first treatment is curb extensions, or they're also known as bulb outs. And curb extensions increase visibility by preventing parking close to intersections or mid-block crossings. They also reduce the crossing distance for pedestrians, and they encourage drivers to slow down as they go around the corners. So this is what they look like on the plan set here. You can see the one with the box around it. And these are the locations that you'll see them on the plans. Most of the corridors have at least 1 or 2 curb extensions. And then I have some renderings for you. So this is the corner of 28th and Whitten as it looks today. And then we see here what it might look like once it's built, right? And you'll notice this car here on the right, it would have been prevented from parking so close to the crossing had the curb extension been in place when the original picture was taken. And so that's one way that it increases the visibility. If you're walking right here, someone coming this way will have a better chance of seeing you. The next treatment that we have here are hardened center lines. So by hardened center line, we mean we're going to install the FG300 right along the center line of the roadway at approaches to intersections. And so hardened center lines, they prevent left turning drivers from making those fast turns where people might be crossing. This is what it would look like on the plan set. Again, the 1 and the line there. And then these are the locations. Basically every street. And here we have a rendering. So this is 28th and San Fernando. And this is what it might look like with a hardened center line. And here you can see this guy probably wouldn't have wanted to park so close here because even though it's already red and there's a fire hydrant, he would be blocking traffic. There's a lot better chance he'd be getting honked at and getting in trouble. And then the next treatment we have are pinch points. So pinch points are a combination of the first 2 treatments, the curb extensions and hardened center lines. This image is actually not as good as the pinch points we're going to be doing. They reduce vehicle speeds by visually narrowing the roadway. You think about driving through a toll booth, there's plenty of room for your car to fit, but most people slow way down to ensure that they make it through. And this is what it looks like on the plan set. You can see these 3 lines here. So we have that center line, whereas in this picture, you can see there was no line in the center. So I think our design is a little better there. And then this is where they're located: 21st, Bonita, Jose Figueres, Camera, Sunset Ave, and William Street. And then here is a rendering. This is Camera. We're looking east at beautiful hills over there. And then this is what it would look like with the pinch points put in. So again, you have room to fit, but you're going to slow down a little bit to make sure. All right. And then the next one we have are median refuge islands. So these are somewhat similar to the hard and center line, but now instead of one row bollards, we go 3 wide. This picture is actually a little better than what we're going to be doing, since we're doing this quick build version. But like hard and center lines, these encourage slower left turns. They offer more of a refuge for pedestrians who are crossing. And they visually narrow the travel lane again, so they are slowing vehicles down, encouraging people to slow down. This is what they look like on the plan set. You can see there's one line here, then the 2 posts, and then another line. And then here are all the locations, most of the corridors again. And this is a rendering from Sunset. So this is Sunset and Camera looking north. And then that's what it may look like with some with a median refuge island. You can see this area is narrower, so if you're coming straight here, you'd probably want to slow down. And then here is another one. This is William Street looking west at 18th Street. And then this is what it would look like. All right. And then we have chicanes. So chicanes are when we use curb extensions to create an S-curve in the roadway. And so this encourages drivers to slow down since the roadway is no longer a straight shot. And you're shifting the line of sight. That encourages people to slow down. And unlike speed humps, emergency vehicles don't have an issue with chicanes the way they do with speed humps. This is what the chicane looks like on the plan set. You can see it's creating a curve in the roadway. And we don't have as many. We have 33rd Street, Bonita Ave, Sunset Ave, and William Court. We especially like them on the corridors where we just have parking on one side of the street. And so
will those chicanes allow gas tankers to drive down 33rd between McKee and Alum Rock anymore?
No, I don't believe so. But I don't think they're supposed to be. Is this an issue that you've noticed on there?
Well, gas tankers have been driving down our street for years, and people race around them. And
Darlene mentioned this as well. So let's make a note.
Our street isn't even made for heavy rigs like that.
Right. Thanks for adding that. That's a good point. So here, let me go back one. There we go. So here's what the street looks like today, parking all on the left side. Here, why is this not going? Here is what it will look like with chicane. You can see we've switched the parking over to the right side and created this S curve. And then I have another viewpoint at street level. And then this is what it may look like at street level.
So with these chicanes added on 33rd Street and parking on my side of the street now, where am I going to put my garbage cans?
Where do your neighbors put them when parking?
They put them everywhere. They put them in the driveways. They put them in my street, my driveway.
Sorry, my dog.
Mark, I just muted you real quick. We're getting a lot of noise through your mic.
Yeah, I mean, there will be some adjustments. You know, I have had the issue where I have to put my my garbage cans in my driveway and then move them when I come home, that kind of thing. One second.
And the problem with that is some people overload their garbage cans and garbage spills out on the street, and then I'm left to pick it up because the person who left it doesn't pick it up. So what's going to get done about that? And how long are cars going to be able to park in one spot? I have guys that have 4 street sweepers on the street that they move them rarely. They take up all these parkings.
Sorry, what was the issue there, Mark? You're saying that people don't move their cars enough?
Correct. Correct. There's people that park on our street that leave them for weeks on end. And that takes up all the parking for people from my side. When I have custom or visitors over, I can't even have them park on the street because there's no parking on the street. So putting the street parking on my side of the street, how's that going to help anything? Everybody who lives across the street, they have multiple vehicles. They're just going to move them to my side and then take all the parking. How's that going to help us?
This project is not about accommodating more parking. This project is about making the street safer for people who are using the street. So it's not going to address those issues that you're talking about. That's true.
Is it possible to make parking permits for people so they can't leave their cars for 48, 72 hours, you know?
Yeah, what you're talking about is a residential parking permit zone. I don't have any info on that at this point. I don't know if Colin has
That would,
or Jess.
that would really help in this neighborhood here because some people don't want to move their cars. And it sucks for us who live on the opposite side who have no parking on our side.
I'm going to add my email address into the chat right now for these kinds of questions that are kind of outside the scope of this project. I will just really quickly say we are no longer adding new residential permit parking zones, and they're originally intended to provide parking for people who live near large attractions like SAP Center or San Jose State University to prevent spillover from those institutions. And the program was basically cut many years ago so that we have enough funding and staff to keep the existing zones running, but we have not been adding new RPP zones. And there's my email in the chat for the questions that this project is not addressing.
All right, let's move on to traffic circles.
There's some questions in chat.
Can we do the questions at the end of this section?
Sure.
This is our final treatment. Traffic circles are also known as a mini roundabout. This treatment slows vehicles through uncontrolled intersections and reduces dangerous collision types. You can't have T-bones or head-on collisions. So we recently installed several quick build circles along San Antonio. For this project, we're going to be using different materials. So instead of the paint and the ceramic domes that you see here, we'll be using a bolt-on plastic and rubber curb system. You see here, this is one on a quick build traffic circle from San Francisco. We only have one of these traffic circles included in the quick strike designs. It will be at this intersection, Jose Figueres and Alexian. You can see this is a really wide intersection. And when you add in the circle and the approach islands, you can no longer just zoom through here, right? You have to, if you're coming north here, you really have to go around like that. And same with coming south. It's a little more direct, but you can't just zoom through here. So it should slow people down. And then of course, these bulb outs slow people going around the corners. All right. And that's what it looks like on the plan set. So let's talk now a little bit about trade-offs, and then we can get into the discussion. This chart lays out the benefits of each treatment that I've just gone over. All treatments, they slow vehicles. It just depends on where. It could be at intersections, could be around corners, or at the mid-block locations. Additionally, some treatments reduce the crossing distance for pedestrians and increase visibility. There are some trade-offs. Chicanes and pinch points may reduce parking, and I know some of you that's a concern. Speaking of the parking impacts, we did a parking audit for the corridors where we are removing more than a few spots. So if we're removing, just one or two, then we didn't. But for these corridors, we did do a parking audit. We want to get a better idea of the impact that removing parking would have. In most cases, there will still be on-street parking available after implementation of the project at the peak period. So these are all residential streets, right? So typically the peak period in all cases is in the evening when people are home from work for the most part. So you can see here, these are the available spots at those peak times now, and then this is the available spots at those peak times afterwards. Camera here, this last block of camera, there's no parking now, and there will still be no parking afterwards. Same with William Court. There's only one spot now, and there's not going to be any spots afterwards. So ultimately, the parking audit did not change the design of any of the projects. As a DOT and the city, safety is our #1 priority. And the treatments we have included here, we feel are the best way to address the safety issue. So I'm sure some of you are wondering about speed humps. Most people know about them. They're a common traffic calming treatment. So our engineers looked at speed humps, and we came to the conclusion that they are not the right treatment for corridors like 33rd and William Court, where you have a long straightaway with parking on just one side. Also, given the quick turnaround time of the grant and the long process required to locate the speed humps, it meant they weren't a good match for this project. And then finally, an earlier iteration of the project designs actually included many speed humps. However, the cost estimates for that design set came out to $2.4 million, which is a full $1 million over the budget. All right, so now let me just do quick next steps. It's just one slide. And, I've already touched on most of this, but the construction is scheduled for the fall. That's, about 6 months behind what we originally thought. At the same time, while this is being built in, over the next couple of years, we're going to be pursuing funding for longer term improvements, not the quick build stuff, but the concrete and the nice looking improvements. And we're also going to be doing an evaluation. So some of you may know about our San Antonio project. We installed that in 2020 and 2021. And then we went out and collected data on those streets to see how those changes were affecting the street. And we got a lot of feedback from the community about certain changes. And we published an evaluation report, and now we're in the process of changing up that project. So if you're not excited about these traffic calming measures coming to your street, and you don't think they're going to work, there is a chance they will be changed in the future if they in fact are not working. We want to see people slow down on these streets, and we want safety to improve on these streets. And hopefully you all share those goals with us as well. So let's go now to questions and comments and talk this all out.
Hey, Pete, I'm going to go through some of the comments that Natasha answered in the chat just for the benefit of folks maybe on the phone. You talked about the speed check location. Darlene asked about the safety benefits of hardened center lines, and Natasha answered that hardened center lines encourage vehicles to slow down when going through the intersection and when turning. David is asking, so what's to stop motorists from avoiding South 28th and speeding north on 30th to and through the L&F Fish Market parking lot? to East Santa Clara Street and on 26th Street to East Santa Clara Street, and from making an illegal left turn into L&F Fish Markets lot and through South 30th south to East San Antonio. The question is, yeah, it is what's going to be done about cars that are cutting through the L&F lot.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I know it's an important issue for David, and I've been trying to figure out a way that we can handle that. You know, we have the 5 wounds plan, and one of the things I've been focusing on that is how we can address issues that I don't think were adequately addressed by Movimiento. And you know, sort of these spillover effects that he's talking about, I think are one of the things that we can focus on there. You know, in Movimiento, we really focused on corridor by corridor, and I'd like to do some more neighborhood-wide things. And David emailed me right at the beginning of this meeting to talk about doing some data collection on 30th to really show, you know, some of the impacts that this quick strike project may have on the neighboring streets. So I think that's a good idea, David, is what I'm getting at there.
Thanks, Pete. Darlene talked about commercial vehicles parking on 33rd. We had some questions that I can address too that were voiced about parking duration. It's a little more complicated than we have time to go into deeply here, but I'll just say that starting back at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, all of our parking enforcement was suspended as a non-essential service. And as we phased it back in, we changed some of the ways we were doing business for equity, for efficiency, and also because we have limited resources. And one of the big changes is that we stopped enforcing the 72-hour rule, meaning that you have to move your car after 72 hours if there's no other violation. We instead are driving proactively around the city and identifying abandoned, decrepit vehicles that need to be towed. They've clearly, you know, been left by their owners, they're non-functioning. And with that approach, we're actually towing a lot more cars, getting a lot more cars off the streets that were health and safety hazards or attracting blight. I think now the future of enforcing the 72-hour rule is it's still a tool we can use, but it's not a priority. And I think that returning to that would mean that we'd have to drop other services. So it kind of comes down to a larger budgetary question. We do have we got a lot of information about that on our website. We're blogging about those changes in policies all along. We have Palmyra saying speed bumps is the answer. And Natasha answered that you were going to be talking about that later in the presentation. Alan saying that traffic circles have to be hardscaped and high enough to discourage folks from driving over them. And Natasha replied that we'll be looking long-term for better hardscape solutions once we find funding. This is the quick implementation, and then we keep searching for funding for more permanent solutions. And Mark asked, what are our recourses to oppose these modifications? And Mark, I encourage you, Pete mentioned we were going to have a comment box up on this project website. It's not there yet. We've got our webmaster swapping out the web page template so we can add that comment box, I hope, by tomorrow, if not then by the end of the week. You can also email Pete with your specific concerns, things that you don't like. That's, I think, you know, the first step is the community feedback. It does impact how we implement these designs. We have a pretty good history of trying to accommodate concerns from the community when we can and still obtain the objectives of the project. Joan is asking, what is the status of installing stop signs on East San Antonio Street at South 20th and South 22nd Streets? Do you know that, Pete?
I do. Oh, Jess, you do it.
Well, I just put it into the chat. We actually understand that the signs, the physical stop signs, went in. They have bags on them because the stop bars and the crosswalk paint, that is technically like a type of material that you can't install and expect to stay in the rain. So those will be installed as soon as the conditions allow, but it's real soon, which is exciting.
Thanks, Jess. All right, the rain has been my answer to a lot of questions lately. David is asking, did you count and double the number of parking spaces on South 28th? There are 4 blocks times 2 sides, so 20 plus cars per block. How? Don't forget the driveways. Can you talk about how we count the parking spaces?
That is a good question, actually. I did notice that it seemed to be a lot on 28th Street. I'm gonna have to double check on that one, David.
Okay, we will double check and adjust if needed. And then Jesse answered Joan's question. Amira says, maybe traffic control forgot to drive down our street, North 33rd Street. I reported a street sweeper more than a week ago, and it is still there. And yeah, that's what my answer previously about cars parked longer than 72 hours. And there's a lot that goes into parking enforcement. I'll say for one, people can just move their car, go around the block, come right back to where they were, and the clock starts again. And that was taking up a lot of our parking enforcement officers' time for a lot of years. We used, before the pandemic, we had about 60,000 calls a year to investigate parked cars in the public right-of-way. And only about 7% of those calls resulted in a tow, because we would go out there, put a flyer on the window, and car would move and then come back, and then we get a complaint about the same car the next week. And it was a massive game of whack-a-mole, and it was not a great use of resources. And that's what I was talking about. Since then, we've started proactive patrols, looking for vehicles that are really broken down, in terrible shape, causing health and safety hazards, and getting those things off the street. Now I've read all the chats. I see we've got some hands up. Natasha, you have your hand up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Natasha Opfel. I'm an associate transportation planner with San Jose DOT. And I just wanted to add a little bit of clarification to the parking count question that David asked in the chat. So I will put the link again, but on our project website, we have the detailed plan sets for every corridor, just exactly what changes are happening and where. And those get into the nitty gritty of where parking was taken away, where it's added, and they have little calculations for each block by block. And those calculations are done by a standard parking spot length that the engineer designer uses. The counts that Pete was sharing were done by a visual parking check where they went out multiple times to observe parking. And that can change based on the types of vehicles. So if there were a bunch of Mini Coopers there that day, they counted those as spots versus if it was an RV, they tried to find a happy medium, but that's where we can get big swings in numbers. Also, if people are parking, I don't know, in my neighborhood, sometimes people fit two in their driveway that kind of poke out. So we can get very different swings in numbers, but they're an average based on physical observations at different times of the day. And we take the peak time. So Pete was sharing 11 p.m. when people are usually home, parked, and staying there.
When I mentioned, don't forget the driveways, I'm not talking about cars parked in the driveways. I'm talking about the amount of length that the driveways take off of the curb, so cars can't park. So I'm guessing Pete's comment is correct in that those numbers are just flat wrong for South 28th. I don't care how they counted them, they're wrong, and they need to be recounted. There's no way you can fit 173 cars there in that stretch.
We can follow up with you directly via email and get you more information on exactly how they calculated that, but they should not be counting driveways.
Of course not, and that's why there's no way 173 cars fit on those four blocks, those 8 segments.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Pete, please clarify it.
Yeah, I will. Thanks for noticing that, David.
Thank you.
Justin, you're next with your hand up.
Hello, this is Justin. Sorry, I'm walking in the street right now. Caught me at a time. Okay, sorry. The thing that I was noticing is the bollards, or the quick build bollards on Sunset. They look like they might get unnoticed a lot. The street is kind of dark. I feel with some of the behavior on that street that they're going to get run over a lot. My question, well, with that and the chicane on Sunset across the street from the school, I know there's going to need to be some behavioral adjustments in that area. I wonder if there's ways that we could bring more attention to them, like the one on Sunset. If there could be like a middle little skeleton bone on the bottom. I forgot what it's called, the hard one. But also with that too, as they do get run over, I suspect that they will be. Do we have budget to keep putting them up to establish? I guess to keep making it look nice, because I do suspect they'll get run over. Can you talk to that?
Yeah, maybe Colin can speak more to the maintenance. I know with San Antonio, our circles have been run over several times, and David is kind enough to send me a picture whenever he notices it, and I've had our streets team replace the signs. So there is some budget for maintenance. I don't know, Colin, do you have anything to add there?
Sorry, Pete, out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Yeah, and then to your broader point, I am curious how these posts are going to hold up. You know, we haven't done a lot of putting them right in the middle of the roadway, and so that's going to be one of the things we'll evaluate as we go forward.
Will this be the first time that we're trying out this method?
It's not the first time we've installed these posts.
In the middle of the street, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that actually.
Okay.
I know we use them sometimes adjacent to a left turn lane, Justin. If
Right.
you think about Alma by downtown College Prep, we've got a long line of these posts.
DOT just put yellow ones at Alum Rock and 33rd for the left turn from Alum Rock to northbound 33rd.
Yeah, we definitely have them in the lanes. I was thinking about specifically like a pinch point.
Yeah, the ones that is being brought up, they're very well lit and visible streets. So I guess this would only differ in that, I guess. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. Were you going to add something, Natasha?
Oh, no, Colin answered it.
Okay.
I've got some more in the chat, Pete. Darlene says the $1 million over budget for the speed bumps, was that just for the 2 streets that are getting chicanes?
No, that was for the entire 7 corridors. And we have 4 streets that are getting chicanes.
Okay. And she also
Okay,
asked
so then with that thought, what would it be for those 4 streets? Again, why passionate about 33rd is that the two ends of 33rd, I'll call it, it has a larger street. They have larger areas. Between Alum Rock and McKee, it's a narrower street. So it's much more of an impact. And again, parking is a big issue. I saw your numbers, extremely concerned of the validity of that as well. We live on the street. There's several of my neighbors, and thank you for the short notice that you got. I'm so glad you joined this call. Pete, I asked for 3 weeks. I only got the notification on Thursday so that I could talk to the neighbors. So again, what can be done for these streets that are getting chicanes? Can speed bumps be installed? Because we all agree, everyone on this call will agree that safety is number one. No one will disagree with that. But there's options that should be addressed that also meets the community needs, the people that live on these streets. And I don't think that that was taken into consideration. You know, we are willing to wait a bit. You said that the presentation or the people on the committee, which we've talked about as well, they wanted speed. We're saying, I know one of the neighbors that I talked with today, I believe she's on this call, has been working on this issue for 20 years. So I think a little bit longer in order to advocate, however we need to advocate for speed bumps, we'd like to pursue that.
Natasha?
Yeah, so this has been a long design process, as Pete has shared. This is not the way we got to the designs now is from best practice, looking at different cities, looking at the most effective treatments. And through that deliberation process, both with the community and our engineers internally, speed bumps answer one problem, speeding when cars get right to the speed bump. I'm sure that you've seen this. I see this on my block all the time. Cars zooming when they get to the speed bump, they slow down a little bit and then they get right back to speeding. 33rd is a really good example of a street that's just a straight shot and people drag race. We believe, and we're excited to evaluate whether the pinch points, the hardened center lines, the combination of treatments we're suggesting, and the chicane will be more effective than a speed bump could be. And in the long term, something that would provide, you know, many more benefits to the street than simply a speed bump. We also went through an internal back and forth, and the street just, you know, based for our lead traffic safety engineers does not qualify for speed bumps as the best possible treatment. So that's why we went with what we did.
So I understand. I totally hear what you're saying, and I'm saying that, and those that are my neighbors, this solution does not work for us, and we'd like to have a further conversation about speed bumps. I totally hear that you say cars will speed up to it. Yeah, but they're not going to go 60 miles an hour to each speed bump, which they're currently, like you said, I'll quote you, drag racing. Absolutely, that's what they're doing. And your number on that one slide, 29 miles per hour, the average or whatever that number is derived from, does not reflect the drag racing as you just mentioned. So that's why I'd like to have the conversation and like to know how we can pursue some next steps to discuss that further.
I think that's totally fair, Darlene. This is Jessica, and I'm sorry that I'm not in an ideal place to be more active tonight. That said, we'll take that back and we'll support you in advocating for it. I think, you know, what Natasha said is what we understand at first, that it just may not be successful through that process. So I think we would like to see these two notions proceed in parallel. And we'll support you in continuing in that potential speed hump process.
Well, I understand the parallel process, and definitely you can continue doing your job in the planning, but in parallel, immediately, I would like to have the discussion, and my neighbors would like to be part of that discussion to talk about speed bumps and not this chicane style that has been presented by the DOT team. We're very concerned about that.
We can set that up in parallel, absolutely.
Okay, and then
Speed
my
bumps
last,
won't work on 33rd Street.
I think
Speed bumps will not work on 33rd Street. I have a friend who lives in Redwood City on Spring Street, and he has speed bumps. They do nothing to slow down the cars. Absolutely zero.
okay, that's
Chicane will work for us.
your perspective.
And that's what we're going to be
And-
learning throughout this process. That's something really exciting about these temporary materials, is that we can evaluate it. If we see that speeds have not gone down, we're going to look at what else can we do. The chicanes didn't work. What more can we do? Can we harden things? Can we add even more traffic calming? Like, that's something exciting about these things. These are not one and done solutions. We monitor these streets, and you know, we are learning from these. So we will get data within the year, is what we target to evaluate if these are working, because we've seen speed bumps not work in places. They work in some situations where we feel that the prescription that we're writing through these designs will be the most effective. And if it's not, if we learn it's not, we will change it.
So again, what defines success? Just reducing speed?
Reducing
Is that-
speed, reducing cut through traffic, getting closer to that 20 mile per hour max mark. Again, 20 miles per hour. We shared how impactful a crash at 30, 40 miles per hour can be, especially hitting some, like a senior, those numbers get even worse. So we would like to see speeds go down because we want to see crashes go down. Speeding is the #1 factor for crashes in San Jose. So if we can get the cars to slow down, the crashes will go down. So safety is our #1 goal. The safer the street, the more successful we are. And then we also want to make sure that pedestrians are more visible, that cars approaching the intersections are more visible. We're reducing that cut through traffic. People want to, you know, use these smaller streets to kind of get around the larger, more, you know, stoplight driven streets. We want to discourage that. And again, we're going to be looking at a holistic neighborhood effort through the 5 Wounds Urban Village Plan updates. So we'll be looking at neighboring streets as well in the future to make sure that negative impacts aren't spilling over.
And then I had one more statement that I'm sure the person who's doing all the great reading there on the notes or the chat. My question is has this gone to council yet? The project plan gone to council for approval?
Yes, different iterations have gone for council approval. Jess or Colin, you can help share about the the final process to get these into construction, but these were approved as part of the bike plan, as part of Movimiento, of both council adopted plans.
Yep, that is
Okay.
correct.
Okay, so Jessica, I know there's more questions, but I'd like to know next steps and working in parallel. How would that look like? And yeah, well, what would those next steps look like? Or in other words, having a parallel
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, couldn't find my unmute button. Darlene, we can take over to email. I can introduce you to the folks who do the work to lead up to a speed bump. We can go through the whole process. They can tell you about the evaluation, and we can make sure that kind of all the neighbors also have access to that conversation and the information.
Okay, and I also want to make sure that Omar Torres and his team is included in those conversations.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right.
And to David's question in the chat, both of those plans were approved not as consent calendar items, but up for discussion. And with lots of discussion, I should add.
Unanimously approved.
They were unanimously approved because those council members don't live on those affected streets. I'm just saying, okay? They don't live on those streets.
Well,
Sorry, I interjected inappropriately, but I just
No,
wanted
it's
to
fine.
say that.
no, I mean, I
It's
think
true.
we've
This is
all
true.
said multiple times, we're all trying to be on the same team, right?
Yeah,
Health and safety
I hear
first.
you. I worked for the city for over 10 years, so
that's
I
great, Jen.
understand, okay?
Perfect. So, but we'll take that parallel path conversation offline. We will continue pursuing this project as well and do the evaluation work after it's in. And we also will certainly report back on whether there were any issues with the parking data. We do contract for that work. So if there is any issue, they will have to rectify that for our contract with them, and we'll report back via email on those items as well. Colin, you were doing a great job scribing. Anything else in terms of follow-up that you captured?
Following up on where the speed tube locations were and the exact dates when those were pulled, I know that we pulled them twice. I know that one for sure was early 2022, but as you all might have felt, the years have just blended together somehow. It's 3 years in the pandemic, so I can get the exact dates to you, Darlene, about when those were pulled and how long they were there for.
Darlene also asked about the car count on 33rd Street. Ooh, Darlene, were you referring to the chart that Pete had up earlier, the table with all the counts?
No, I'm tagging into the conversation from the gentleman. He was questioning the car count for his street. And actually, you know, I'm just going to have fun with you guys since we're having this conversation. I mean, I've lived on the street for 4 years and there's others that have lived here far longer. I'm going to actually do some counts. I'm going to walk down the street and I'm going to grab some data points because I think that there can be, and again, I know you can't devote that much time to this street, but there, you know, we who live on this street, I think can add value to the data and give a more perspective. So yes, I'm talking about that data, how the car count was done, you know, or driveways included. I don't know. I would like to understand, or we would like to understand that in more detail.
Great. Well, I think that's something that we can do is get more details about exactly how and when the car counts were done.
Mhm.
Can I just, I'm sorry to talk over you, Colin. I'll blame Zoom even though it's my fault. When we say the car counts, are we referring to the traffic numbers that are on this screen or to the parking car counts? Just to make
Sounds like
sure.
parking, actually.
Yeah, the particular conversation was the parking
Okay,
slide in particular. And
Okay.
of course, the 29 miles per hour, I absolutely question that in this segment of the street. I absolutely do. And if it was taken in 2022, you know, that's still COVID time, or even 2020, it's still COVID. We do have seasonal workers that live on this street, and it's heavier in the summertime. So again, that's another data point. So I'm just sharing thoughts that I don't think that this provides the full picture.
Darlene, what part between, if I can ask you, between Alum Rock and McKee on 33rd, do you think is the fastest?
Between Elm Rock and McKee, right after the stop sign, if you make a right or left, depending, coming from McKee, that little section there, the cars aren't that fast, but once they hit that stop sign, they see the thoroughfare, and that's where they do their drag racing.
Yeah.
All the way to Elm Rock. So McKee to Elm Rock from that stop sign. And by the way, that little machine you had on the, near that stop sign, that gave the miles per hour, it's kind of silly to put it where you put it. It's right by a stop sign. And
Oh, we put
So
them south of the intersections. That's why that's why it was kind of hard to understand the locations, because it says south of St. John. They're always placed mid-block to avoid those issues. And then also the calculations are done, those are the 85th percentile speeds. So 85 people or less, if you took 100, are going 29 or under. It does not account for those, and I'm speaking from my street, middle of the night drag racers, the one-offs that are just hauling down the road. We have that data as part of these calculations, but they're technically outliers, but they're dangerous outliers. So we know that cars
agreed. Those are the worst. And again, that will not occur if speed bumps are here or are installed. That won't occur. The drag racing won't occur. So anyway, I know we're going to have more conversations, and Jessica, just so I can stop talking, because I want to give other people an opportunity. I'll hear from you later this week, or no later than when.
So we can start the email chain tonight before the meeting is over.
Excellent.
That's no problem. But then I'll be responsible for getting a meeting with the folks together who do
Perfect.
that
And
work.
if you could include those that are on 33rd Street as well, that would be awesome.
Yeah, if Pete from the Zoom registration, do we have all of the email addresses for people, or do we need to get that by people putting it into the chat if they want to be included?
Yeah. I'm not sure actually.
to be invited
I don't
to
know enough
the
about Zoom.
conversation. For Zoom, we have like a roster of all the people that came tonight, but we do not have the knowledge if you live on 33rd or
Right.
curious about 33rd. So if in the chat you'd like to be involved in this email thread, maybe just mark yes or put a nice emoji or something. I will
But I live
log
on
you.
33rd.
Yeah, or just put I'm on 33rd. Whatever you want to designate yourself, I will take your names down. Oh, and Mark says he's going to be in touch with Darlene. Perfect. So Darlene, people might be reaching out to you on the side as well, and feel free to just forward them.
I love it. That would be great. Not a problem.
All right. Does anyone have anything they want to discuss else? Anything else they want to discuss? It's not parking related or 33rd Street related. It can be parking related, I suppose. If not, I think we can end a little bit early. And there is another one of these meetings tomorrow night if you're interested in the east side corridors. I hope some of you will join us. Otherwise, have a wonderful evening, and we'll be in touch with some of you soon.
Thank you all for spending your evening with us and giving us this feedback. That this type of discourse is always insightful for us, and we learn a lot. So thank you. And we'll be in touch.